Same for the salt marshes, and you can see also the different categories, the seagrass ecosystems. And this is about the open water and the deep sea ecosystems, because also here we have sequestration of the carbon, like Lisa explained better than me, and we can give it a value, and this is evaluated. We have the key deep sea ecosystem goods and services. We have the categories, the 4 categories, and the different components for each one. If I take, for example, the provisioning services, we have the carbon capture and storage, finfish, shellfish, mammals, oil, gas, minerals, chemical compound for industry, waste and disposal sites, and we have other components for each one. I'm not going to read all. And the economic value for ecosystem services, for example, for fisheries, the catch volumes are estimated 7.4 million tons with an economic value of 469 million euro per year. So it is very important, especially for fisheries, but you can see even for other ecosystem services, it can be important. The worst thing is for oil and gas. You can see the number, meaning that maybe some industries want to go and drill and find the oil and gas. And this is why science is important, to tell them, don't do that, because you will destroy the biodiversity and also the planet. So thank you. And the next speaker will explain the finance side, so we'll go now to the finance. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. First of all, thank you, Nathalie, for inviting me to this panel. And I mean, each time I come to these events, I learn something new. I'm an economist, finance professor, and I'm also the chair of the advisory board of the European Banking Authority. So this is the regulation authority for the European Union for banking. So, and I was listening very carefully to Lisa and took pictures because, first of all, and as Françoise mentioned, I think it's essential that different disciplines work together, and not each one in silo. And then at the end, economic policies and finance policies are made by economists and finance people who may ignore what is really behind each discipline in this science. And for the marine ecosystem is so complex that this complexity it's so important and it's very rich. But at the same time, because of the lack of, I would say, knowledge from other disciplines that are making the policies, then we are, in a way, contributing altogether to the destruction of biodiversity. And this is one message I would like to put before I make my, my comments. Now, economics comes in the middle, and I'm very happy to, of course, Nathalie, we work together on these matters, but beyond this, it comes at the end of the spectrum. So first of all, we need to have the science, but the science is an evolving thing. So it's every day we learn something new. And then in economics and finance, we want stability. We don't want uncertainty. We just want things that are fixed. And then the models are made on fixed things. So this is really an illusion. We know this. But the reality is there is what I call, we try to push it for having or integrating more new research. But this new research, we don't know what is the impact. And then policies, as I said, and in finance particularly, they need to have some stability in models. So then you can make money on the return and risk. And this is all fixed in a normally distributed fashion. And this is what how finance work. So in fact, finance people, they don't want to see tail for them, tail risk has to be insured. And then up to today, we could insure the risks via the insurance market, via the reinsurance market. But because of the climate change impact that we've been seeing in many regions of the world, I think the frequency of the extreme events is going up. The impact of this extreme event is going up in terms of cost and also in terms of loss of biodiversity. So the connection between climate change and biodiversity is not we wish to have it. It must be done. It's an obligation of policymakers and scientists and every stakeholder in the game to have it clear. And all the policies will have to be, in my view, at least as an economist and finance person, have to be really already implemented in the business models, not only for the economic actors, but also for the finance actors. Otherwise, what would be the impact if this is not done as quick as possible? The loss of biodiversity will impact all the balance sheets of the economic sectors, particularly the sectors that are very much impacted by this biodiversity loss, agriculture, blue economy, whatever they call blue economy, and many other sectors that are connected. So if we continue, for example, and I saw the numbers from you, the first time I see these numbers in Atelier, billions, just to continue extracting and losing at the same time the biodiversity in the ocean, this is a huge destruction of value. And this destruction of value, we are not putting numbers of it because you see it's all there in the space, nobody knows. But then when we put value on it, and we go to the right people to say, look, either you extract or you lose biodiversity. So it's a trade-off. It becomes a trade-off in economic policy. It means that either I'm going to lose 200 billion or I'm going to win a certain amount of money from extraction based on the cost of barrel of oil or gas, whatever it is. So we need to find the appropriate, I would say, mechanism to see how we can accelerate the transition. So the transition to a sustainable economy where we are not losing or destructing biodiversity. Now, there was a very interesting speech, and each time I go, and I am very interested by that, by the member of the board of the European Central Bank, Elderson, who we actually invited last year to talk about this in COP27. And he said clearly that the loss of biodiversity will impact financial stability. This is the first time a member of the central bank executive board is saying it, and he's saying that we are not taking into consideration the biodiversity losses, not only in oceans, but also in lands. And these are all aspects that we need to be very much aware of. So Nathalie asked me to talk about something very particular. So these are my own opinion based also and reinforced by what I heard from Françoise and Lisa, and also Nathalie. But I think as researchers, as scientists in different disciplines, we need to be a bit more forceful in really transmitting these messages to the right people and to make the change. Maybe the change will not happen on time, but then we are already seeing, for example, in the insurance and reinsurance market, some reinsurance companies are exiting from extreme risk. So I guess who is going to pay for it? I know who is going to pay for it, taxpayers. At a point in time, if they have the money or deep pockets to do it. So this is why they have to start thinking about disaster type of funds, but who is going to pay for the disasters type of funds? Countries with higher financial space or fiscal space. This means that, again, taxpayers are going to pay for it. And in democracies, in my view, this shouldn't happen like this. We should really be involved, and we should really be there in the forefront of the decision making, at least to give our opinion. So back to finance. Now, the financial sector, I would say, they are still what I call acting with the upside mentality, in the sense that they are still thinking that there is no climate change or very little, and we would like to go into sustainability slowly, so that the transition can take hundreds and hundreds of years, so it doesn't matter. So it's fine as long as we are enhancing the couple return and risk and maximizing it. Then as long as there is no an extreme event that has touched our balance sheet and there hasn't been an increase of, I would say, losses. But then again, even the losses are taken care by the taxpayers, as we know very well. When there is a crisis, bailouts are the way to go forward. But anyway, let's not debate that. The most important is how finance could serve as a point of convergence between science and socioeconomic impact. And I think you gave a fantastic view, which is the valuation. We need valuation for the marine ecosystem services, and this is done already. It's not perfect. Research is not perfect, has never been. But there are ways to quantify and to value the services provided by marine ecosystem, like what you said, carbon sequestration. And also, I heard, this is new, heat sequestration. This is very important now. How can we, in fact, value heat sequestration? It's not only the ecosystem sequestration and the interaction between heat sequestration and the other ecosystemic services in the oceans. I think this is quite interesting because as an economist, I don't see things in silos, I see things together. So if there is a heat wave and the ocean is giving certain ecosystemic services, then these ecosystemic services are completely lost because of the heat wave, or maybe enhanced as the heat wave. So we don't know the interaction. And the interaction has to be very much studied by the scientists working together on these aspects. And we know very well in some pockets of the world, there is heat waves. For example, I come from Spain, Barcelona, and we've never seen such a heat levels in the last practically 10 years. And not only in Spain, but also in the South Mediterranean. So the Mediterranean region is a hot spot, but everybody talks about it and nobody does anything about it. So in fact, the economic valuation is really the bridge of the gap between the understanding of the ecosystemic services of the oceans and the scientific research. And this is, for me, essential. But then to value, we need data. So we need a lot of data and we need the capacity and methods to assess this data. But then methodologies are some sort of methods that we use for certain purposes. And these have to be very carefully looked at for which purposes and then which are the weaknesses of each one of them. Of course, there is no perfect word in these methodologies, but at least we can do our best. When, of course, research is advanced up to a point in time. The second thing is finance could also try to support more science. And I think this has been pushed for, I mean, these ideas have been really, but then problem there is the finance cannot take a position of any sector, like extractive industries, for example. So they have to allow or at least to have an objective to have sustainability, or also part of the ESG, environment, social and governance debate, not to attack this ESG thinking and thinking that this is not stable, this will create problems, reputational problems for us, but then try with the matrix we have and then move forward. That's why, for me, one of the aspects that financial sector could do is to fund research, because this will limit, I would say, or reduce eventually the losses of, or I would say, the economic destruction of value in the future. But we don't know what is this economic destruction value, but we could estimate it today. We can know, for example, a loss of biodiversity in certain part of the world could impact. We know, for example, if you continue extracting oil and gas, you might lose 200 billion based on this research that Nathalie mentioned. So when finance helps a bit in terms of the funding of the research, this also means that we can facilitate quicker the development of nature-based solutions. And then we also have the recognition, collective recognition between the scientists, the economic actors, and the finance actors. Of course, I was in Dubai 2 weeks ago on the IMC, which is the International Monetary Conference, and the financial sector said, this is not our role, this is the government role to bridge the science to economic and social impacts. But I think we don't have the time to send the blame to one or the other one, or to send the responsibility. I think we are all co-responsible, and this is the idea now, is everybody has to work together to ensure that we are moving in the right direction. So other aspects that the finance can do is risk management and investment. Of course, they need to invest in impact investing, and these are all investing that are managing. In fact, if you look at the deep down of the investment, is managing the environmental changes, incentivizing investment into sustainable projects. But this has to be underpinned into scientific research also, and understanding what is behind those projects, and to be able to really make the appropriate decision on those investments. And risk management, obviously, integrating environmental, climate change, biodiversity matrix into the assessment of those projects, and financing and investment of those projects. So of course there is a role. Finance is stepping behind because they don't want to change the mindset, changing mindset of these industries, that you have asked them to finance oil and gas for ages, and now you're telling them divest from there as soon as possible, and then invest in something yet unknown from a research standpoint. So it's a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit. So they step back. They say this is reputational risk for us, and who is going to pay for this lack of knowledge risk? You will pay it, government will pay it, or who else will pay it? But at the end, this is the wrong debate, because at the end, we are paying for their also, in a way, for the mismanagement of risk. But what one thing, in my view, has to be accelerated as much as possible is the technology and data collection and utilization, especially, for example, in aspects related to the marine conservation and any other sectors that have that is impacted by climate change, and where there is a potential for biodiversity loss. Role of artificial intelligence, role of and data analytics also could help a lot. So we can estimate nowadays, we can easily estimate, we can understand, we have the satellites, we can know where is a destruction point of value. So all of this is possible, but we need to take action in that sense. And then impact measurement. So this is also reporting, establish the standard frameworks for measuring, reporting environmental and social impact. These are also, yes, in the doing. But it has to be implemented. So this is the problem. I mean, it's there somewhere. Everybody, IUCN has developed a very nice statistical framework that could be very nicely used. But then it has to be implemented by countries, by economic actors, financial actors, to allow this advancement. And again, and I repeat, this is all interconnected to ESG. Environment, social, and governance matrix and risks. And these risks have to be assessed very carefully and at the same time disclosed. So role of regulation here is essential in my view, so on public disclosure, and also to give incentives to the finance actors to integrate this type of matrix in their financing decision and investment decisions. They're resisting, which is understandable. Because it's higher cost for them, higher capital requirement. But then for the short term, yes, but for the long term, maybe there would be a reduction in terms of the losses of economic losses that we will see every year more and more, and these losses will not be insured by the private sector. So again, the public sector will have to step in. So if they don't do the right policies and in the right time, then the losses will be shared, or maybe not even shared. So we will have a huge destruction of value. Thank you.
I would like to give the floor to the microphone to the floor. If you have questions, please. No? Yes.
Thank you for the presentations. I was just wondering, are there examples in the current financial system that we're operating in that would incentivize individual financial actors to consider these losses that seem like they might often be more, that the losses probably don't affect those individual financial actors necessarily, that they're more almost like common destruction of goods rather than individual? Does that make sense?
I don't think the financial sector has started this thinking yet on the biodiversity. So at least I'm aware of the banks in Europe and the Mediterranean and Africa. I'm not aware of such even a debate in those at this specific topic on biodiversity losses. This is really, and also in my view, it's financial sector is not taking an active role, proactive role in this. So if the government is saying, yes, you're not going to fund because of the biodiversity loss in this area, yes, they can follow. But if it's not a policy action, they would not take any proactive role in that direction.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, please.
Hi, thanks very much for the excellent presentation. It's really interesting. I come at this from a sort of biogeochemistry point of view, so forgive me if I'm being extremely naive here. But, you know, when I think about carbon as a commodity that we sort of buy and sell, it seems to me that the price of carbon at the moment is driven by what people are willing to pay for it. And actually, potentially, if we could change our viewpoint to carbon should be worth the damage it's costing, you know, and is it possible to do that assessment, you know, for like the release of so much carbon is going to cause X amount of damage? And I completely take your point that, you know, no set of numbers are perfect. And I try and do some basic natural capital assessment and I often get, oh, well, you know, this and that. But, you know, could we have a stab at that maybe?
Thank you.
Okay, this is a complicated question. I mean, it's not an easy one at all. But when we use markets for pricing, we tend to subject ourselves to the supply and the demand. So I'm not going to give an economic course, but there is a price, and this price can fluctuate over time. It depends on the demand and the supply. Now, my question is it really the right mechanism to put it on market? I don't know. I mean, I cannot answer this question because I think either that or you leave it in the hands of the government, and I'm not sure this is the right way to do. So this is all new, I would say, new thinking. I mean, our economic model in the past, from post-Second World War to, say, the 80s, with the Washington Consensus up to maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and things have been changing, was to extract economic value, financial value, no matter what. So the resources are infinite. So you just extract and produce and pollute and whatever it is. Now there are some constraints. So we want to put either taxes here, incentivizes conducts, and creating a market for something that we didn't even think it would have existed, because it has existed there, but nobody's pricing it. So this is a point. I mean, forests, oceans have always been sequestering, and then now we are seeing, oh, by the way, there is a value, you know, there is a service there they provide to us, and now we want to value it, to give ourselves the incentives to reduce or to, you know, enhance it or whatever it is, so to make money out of it. I'm not going to debate this, because it's much more a philosophical question whether we should do this or not. But then at least if we want to curb a certain economic model that we have developed in the past, and it's still there, prevalent, I mean, everybody thinks the same, there's very little change out there if you go and talk to economic actors, then you need to give the right incentives for them to move. So that's the whole thinking, to give the right incentive for but then what is the right incentive? Is money again. So it's maximizing money. So I don't know if this is really the right way we're doing it. I'm not sure. I mean, but that's why research, as I said, research needs a lot of time. We need to give the right models there. But I understand your frustration, absolutely. But then we are all frustrated. I'm an economist and a finance, and I'm also frustrated. I'm not even sure this price is the right price. And I'm not even sure the mechanism is the right mechanism. And I'm not even sure this mechanism, if you want to, in fact, convince other countries to use it, is the right mechanism for them. So this is all still in... We are testing, experimenting, but I'm not sure the time will allow us to experiment everything we want.
Thank you, Rim. I can maybe add something. I co-wrote a paper, and the title was "The Price of Carbon is Not Right." So, the carbon pricing is now studied a lot. The problem is we don't know what is the right price of carbon. We are working on it. There is the social cost of carbon that now we consider, and we are trying to study the different cost of carbon in the different places. The problem is, if you look at the price of carbon, it is different in the different localization. It's not the same. And if you consider the price of carbon using the technology, it's much higher than the nature-based solutions. And this is not fair, in fact, because what we want is to use the price of carbon to protect the nature, our planet. And now I'm studying to see what is the right price of carbon. But it, as Rim said, it takes time, and we hope to find something. Any question? I have one for Lisa. Do you see that the input of science is really going to policy decisions? And what do you expect from the COP28?
Oh, is science affecting policy decisions? Well, all of us scientists who come to these meetings would like it to. But of course, the configuration is such that the people doing the negotiations aren't over here. And we have really limited ways to bring science and, you know, what we know to policymakers, right? I mean, we have some organizations dedicated to doing that, you know, and I participate in one for the deep ocean, but I think overall, if you ask where is the science in the UNFCCC, people will tell you it's the IPCC, right? That's the science body that's supposed to be bringing the science to all the policy. But the IPCC, even here, isn't very present. I mean, I haven't found their pavilion yet, I think they have one, right? And you know, yes, the IPCC results are driving the negotiations. They drove the Paris Agreement. They've been driving what people are trying to do. So at that level, I think their policy, science is influencing policy. But there's an awful lot of details, say, for example, in the marine carbon dioxide removal arena, which is rapidly expanding. I think the industry and the sale of carbon credits has gotten ahead of the science. We don't have the science yet to even know if these technologies are going to be effective at sequestering carbon for a long period of time, how long, how effective, and what the collateral damage will be to our marine ecosystem. So there are definitely places where the science lags behind. What was the other part of the question? What do I expect from the COP? I don't know. I'm not even in a place to say. I think my expectations are a bit on the low side right now. But I mean, we've already heard one really important result on loss and damage. I guess my hope is that that doesn't deflect from what we really need to be doing, which is getting rid of coal and reducing our fossil fuel emissions. And, you know, it's great that we can fund developing nations and pay not everybody who's suffering from damage, but we have to stop that damage from getting worse. And I don't know if I expect us to do that, but it's what I hope we can accomplish.
Thank you, Lisa. Yes, we need the governments to take the right decisions, but also we need the private sector to do the right things. So do you think the financial markets will step in, and especially carbon markets or nature markets?
I mean, they might step in, but then the speed on which they are going is just too slow, and I don't think, based on the economic, again, models that have been designed to have the private sector pushing this development, they will be following the development for sure if there is no other way, if you change the economic model, but for the moment they are just doing what they've been doing for years. So again, deals in oil and gas, drilling here, drilling there. So they're just doing the same things with adding a little bit on the sustainability aspects, like for example trying to be present but in a very minor manner. But of course they use it for very much for you know, showing their involvement in these transitions. But it will, you know, it's very few steps, in fact. I would expect much more, and of course the regulation should push for more. But yeah, we need to move much faster. Or we will have to move. I always say we need a crisis, a climate crisis, to be able really to move. Like we had the financial crisis in 2007-8. But I can also tell you that even with that crisis up to now, we have not implemented the right rules to fight for the next crisis, which will not look like the previous crisis, just for the sake of it. So in fact, we are just there kicking the can and resisting any change. And this resistance of change will not allow us to be prepared for a major climatic disaster. And then we are hoping for the best.
Thank you. So what we can say is that we are trying to link climate and biodiversity. It is clear there is true links between the two. And we need for that multidisciplinary responses. And this is why we have to link science, economics, finance, and many other disciplines and work together. And maybe finally we can succeed in protecting our planet and our climate. Thank you.